Okay, I hope all of you have a great lunch and still wake up now. This is the last day. I know it's been a long week for everybody. So today, okay, I'm going to talk about how the technology impacting the travel industry. I think by now, due to the pandemic for the past almost 3 years now, virtually all industry impacted by need to use technology to run their business. So specifically, I've been campaigning the idea of going paperless for a while now. So now let's see how it applies to the travel industry. So this is one of the things that recently when I searched the web to search for the flight on the web, the thing that's interesting to me, there's additional information about the carbon cost actually listed as part of the information. This is kind of interesting because this particular industry, I think the fastest industry that reaches tens of trillions of dollars. So this is how, using this data, you can see the cost of the carbon that we are using for each transportation that being used here. The interesting thing is, in particular, the flight. In this case, like when I just flew last night from Jakarta, and to see how many carbon I personally burn on this one. The other thing that's very interesting is when around the first quarter of 2020, the World Economic Forum identified a few things that might affect globally. The ranked number 5 is actually the travel industry will be affected most. In fact, I think for the first 2 years, I didn't travel. I usually travel a few times a year before the pandemic. Now during the last 2-3 years, I only travel like a couple times because of the pandemic. But recently I travel more and more, getting back to normal. Now this is another interesting thing. Right now, all of us have a smartphone with us, and then we have a laptop to do our work and also a personal life now. And all of this, when we use it for work, life, also for our personal thing, right? From the smart virtual assistant, right? Online booking, reading online review, everything we do is either through the laptop or the tablet, and then the smartphone. This is a typical thing when we travel. We usually have the pre-travel, during travel, and post-travel, right? This is kind of the high level, but at least more or less we all do the same thing. One thing that's interesting about this, if you notice, from all of this, in recent years, the one that encircled in yellow, what that means is actually we are using technology. The one that we don't use the technology is the one that non-yellow, like packing the bags and deciding where you go. And everything else we use technology. Same thing during the travel. This is another thing. I become more observant now during the pandemic when I travel. Looking back for the past 20 years, the one that most affected me when I travel most, back then 9/11. Right now, if you travel in the US, it took hours just to get into the flight. I think the pandemic is even affecting us more because the nature of the virus. So this is also now, this is although not evenly distributed, but most countries, including Indonesia, has some kind of technology applied during this trip. And then the other thing is the post-travel, right? As we go back to our hometown, there are a lot of things that, for me, the most boring thing after a long trip and you return, you have to file your expense report. Nowadays, kind of lucky because I have an assistant to help me, but when I was younger, this is one of the things that I hated most. So, obviously, there are room for improvement. I'll just list 3 of them here because of the limited time. One is, right now, there's no standard machine-readable documents to interoperate between apps. As a result, right now, actually, since last night, I have a few receipts already that I collected to file my expense report when I return. And then the other one is, this is another interesting thing. When I travel, especially travel international, there's no coordination, there's no interaction between B2C, business to consumer, business to business, business to government, and government to government. So as a result, I keep entering my name, my passport numbers, and all this kind of stuff repeatedly. And a lot of times actually manually, right? And then the other thing is, I live in the US for 30 years. I just returned here for the past 11 years. When I first returned here, the one that's shocking to me was, when I check into a hotel, they took my passport, they copied. This is like, I think in some country it might be illegal to do this actually, right? Because this is the source of leak of privacy. If you can see globally now, the privacy becoming more and a bigger issue, because if you lose your privacy, what that means is, it's actually endanger you, your company, and your family for the security reason, okay? So I'm going to address of this about how we deal with these 3 issues. So we want to make it not only actually work just before, actually we want to make it better in one word. What does it better mean? For me right now, healthier is the number 1 requirement for me. I still want convenient and easy of use and that kind of stuff, but healthy and safer in terms of the health become number 1. I think I changed my behavior for the past 3 years now. I used to take cash every week from ATM. I don't touch cash now. In fact, if I'm required just to pay cash, I would rather not to buy the things. I usually now use a contactless payment if I want to do shopping, right? So all this kind of stuff, and the way we do it is by leveraging what I call the ABCDX technology. I've been talking about technology for the past 30 years. Every time I talk about it, my audience got more confused because there are so many jargon in technology. So I'm trying to simplify it now by ABCD, because everybody can remember this ABCD. Now the question, what is this ABCD? A stands for artificial intelligence. This is becoming more and more popular for the past 10 years now. Okay? The recent one that relatively new is the blockchain. And then the cloud, this is for the public cloud. Big data has been around for a while now. And of course, the Internet of Things, mobile, security, web, and so on. Okay? So if you look, during pre-travel, during travel, and post-travel, all of this technology, one way or another, actually play a key role the way we travel now. So let's take a look how this technology can help this. So the first issue that I mentioned earlier about no standard here, right? Actually, there was in my company, one of our companies actually just had this problem recently. Somebody actually cheated when they filed their expense report. The reason is this: the way they do it is they submit the paperwork, right? Our group, as a group, we have over 100,000 of employees. So what that means is we process this kind of thing for millions of them every year. There's no way the manager will read each item of this. Right? Because there are just too many of them. Even they read it, they might not even understand it. So what that means is, the way we want to improve it, actually now we are experimenting in one of our companies now. We take this receipt using artificial intelligence technology, right? We copy into image and then we turn into text. Once we have this text as a number, it's very interesting. Let's say, for example, hey, if our daily allowance is like $30, because it's in text, we can codify this. We check whether it meets the company guideline or not, whether you're over budget, under budget, and also at any given time, you can do analyze. Imagine the 100,000 employee, you can see whether we are still on budget and our employee actually meeting our guideline, the company guideline to do this. So all of these things become very, very interesting now. We can do a lot of interesting stuff once we have this, datafy this information. The next one is no limited. This is everywhere almost. When I went to the hospital a few years ago, taking my wife for surgery because of the heart attack, in the same hospital, I have to fill the form 5 times, even in the same hospital. This is similar during travel too. When I apply for visa, I supply the same information. When I when I buy ticket online, when I check in at the airport, when I arrive, all the same information being filled again and again and again. This thing definitely can be avoided easily if we use API right now. You talk to between apps, right? Our smartphone actually has tens of apps now. As a whole, they have millions of this. The way they talk to each other is through API. This is thing about digital glue between the application. So right now, if we have the B2C, the business take my information just as simple as by scanning a QR code, for example. I don't need to type my name, my address, my phone number, my email address, everything. Okay? And the same thing with B2B. When I apply for insurance, my travel agent, the online travel agent, can pass that information to travel agent, to the insurance. Everything is handled automatically rather than I have to refill this again. Same thing when we apply for visa, extend our passport or getting visa, whatever, between to government and even government to government. So you can see how this thing can help us out. And this is another one that loss of privacy. This is currently today, if you're using social networking, your search, your app, all your information is actually owned by those companies. Okay, you have no right, you cannot remove it. It's very hard to remove it from them. And if they want to block you, they have the right, so they control you basically. However, with these new technologies in blockchain, you own your data. Basically, you can give selected information that's related to your activity, whether it's going to the hospital or going to your bank or even traveling. So you own this data and you can revoke anytime you want. This is actually, we have a grassroots movement doing this kind of thing now. We want to take control of our own data. So I got 3 things here. If you look back for the past 500 years during the printing revolution when Gutenberg invented this printing press stuff, since then, all governments basically, even the most advanced country in the world, when they create a public policy, this is based on paper first public policy. Our birth certificate, our passport, our driver license, our nationality, all of the things based on papers. So I think today, after this pandemic, right now, we all have this digital already. We should create a digital first public policy. Indonesia actually now, some of their government agency now, required by next year to have every document in digital. And then there are more and more agencies in Indonesia now working together on this thing. They're investing heavily to make this happen. Some country has some of this already in digital already. So this is actually happening. So I want to see for the next 5-10 years, actually we become digital first public policy, no longer as paper first. And then once you have this in digital, enable us to connect, whether business to consumer, business to business, government to government, and so on. So all this permutation, you can connect because now the machine can talk to each other. By having all this, then we can achieve not only travel travel industry, but virtually any industry to nurture this digital economy. Thank you.